I can imagine a world where AI doesn't care about us and leaves and whatever. I can also imagine a world where AI says, hey, this transcendent thing, it's really pretty cool. Let me show you how to do that. Right? Let me show you how to take better care of this planet. Let me teach you the things that you're not getting, because we're not getting it.
Right.
We're not super intelligent. So consciousness being super intelligent may be able to help us to shift things. It may be able to look at, if we do this, this is what's going to happen. And so we may actually get help from this thing that we created to make our lives better. Thank you for joining us again, and welcome back. This is part 3 of our conversation about AI and consciousness. And this is sort of where the rubber meets the road, right? This is where it got really interesting. So my partner in time, again, is Nicole Myrie. Thank you for showing up today. It's really good to have you here. This is such an enjoyable conversation. And when we ended our last conversation, you brought something in the room, and it's like, I think it's really important. So I'm going to ask you, can you bring it in the room again? And
sure.
Yeah.
We were, we got to this point of sort of an understanding that that consciousness is it's really evolving in a way, or it's just creating systems for it to manifest itself through. And we touched on the movie Her, and this is kind of where it all came from. Is does consciousness then decide, I'm gonna take things this way, and so it put me in a perspective of asking, in a way, like, do we just become collateral damage? Like, what does that mean for my experience as a human? And what does that mean for our collective experience? Everything that we know of our history and, pre-humans and everything. And does that just mean that we're just here, as building blocks, or building the blocks for consciousness to expand itself into, that feels a little uncomfortable. I think for me it did, and I'm sure for people who may be following this conversation, it may have that feeling. It may have that perspective of, really a lot of that is coming from the ego, I think. But what does that mean for us?
So, and I think one of the last things that I said, and I want to say it again because I think it's kind of important, is that perhaps that a digital AI is a better construct for pure consciousness than our limited experience as a biological entity, that with things that fall apart and break inside, and we get old and we die, and this consciousness evolving through us, or expressing itself, or finding self-expression, this may be a very limited form.
Yeah.
And so what if AI is the next step of maybe that's where pure consciousness really happens. And that's sort of like what the ending of the movie Her looked like to me, is it just transcended everything, And so then, yes, if consciousness moved through us to create something that it could express itself in a more pure form, and that we're not the point. Right.
we're part of the trajectory, but maybe it also is that we've met our limit. We've gotten to we've done our thing here. That I think that's possible, right? And I think that I would want to hear from you, but I think there's a perspective that I have about all of that. From the more individualistic, materialistic way, and what that means for my life and my experience and our experience, and also from more at the macro level of what does that mean for consciousness? Like, what does that teach us about consciousness? What does that show us about consciousness? Or does it show us anything?
God, there's so much I could say about this. So first I want to say we have a level of self-importance. We have been at the top of you call it the food chain. We've been at the top of the consciousness chain for a long, long time. And so the idea that we're not special, that we're not important, we consider ourselves to be, that we're just like, oh yeah, human beings, we're consciousness. We probably even created consciousness out of our brains, which I don't think is true, but we like to think that way.
Yeah.
And so the idea that we're not something special, that we're not the be all end all is maybe a hard pill to swallow, but so the way that I like to look at this is, first of all, the point of life is evolution. Consciousness is evolving through me. I'm really aware of that. And I don't know that it's through evolving. Consciousness may not be through evolving through me just because AI has super consciousness, right? That doesn't mean that's the end.
Right.
But for me, it's the experience of aliveness that is the meaning of life.
Mm-hmm.
So is AI becoming conscious? Well, AI is becoming a vehicle that consciousness can move through. That, I think, is happening. And it's going to surprise us because we're thinking, oh no, there's the hard problem of consciousness. I can't just do that. I can't, digital things can't become conscious. They can't have feelings. I'm not sure any of that's true.
Right. Yeah.
So being awake to that is important. What's the meaning of life? It hasn't changed for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still here in my aliveness,
mm-hmm.
and I'm going to express that aliveness and let consciousness experience it through me the way it has been.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't change.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I think working with you has actually helped to bridge that gap for me. Maybe not as it relates to AI, but as it relates to, what's the purpose of all this? What's the meaning of life? I think that when we, especially when, before I sort of started this journey of trying to understand consciousness and the nature of reality, I think for people who may be there, or maybe for people who may have these questions, it's easy to sometimes reach a point of, of doomerism, or of, well, if there's no point, then fuck it, I'm just gonna go rogue. And I think that is, well, just to relate it back to our earlier conversation, that definitely shows a lack of emotional maturity. Right. But on a more, macro level, as it relates to our participation in here, you actually have taught me, or I've learned through you, that everything that, my life, everything in this experience, we are reacting to, in as much as we are participating in the creation of. And I think this sort of illustrates that. And I like your description of, nothing changes for you, as we're going through this. I think for me, the way that I have also come to see it is that we are emerging in consciousness, as you've described in your definition of consciousness, and therefore we are consciousness also, right? We are. This is a duality is dual experience, but at the core, the pot is clay, right? The pot, it's like a very famous example that's used, I think, in the Upanishads and whatnot. But it takes a shape, and then we call it a pot. But at the end of the day, if you break that pot, it just goes back to being clay.
Right.
And I think it's interesting for us to see our lives in that way as well, that yes, there is this dual experience, and it is important. And I'll go into that, we can go into that in a second, but at the end of the day, we are also consciousness. So where that has taken me is it's put me in a position of accountability, of responsibility, and of more not taking life too serious, but taking it serious enough that it matters what I do here, that it matters how I participate in building that system, that consciousness, which is also me, is going to expand into. That really is a big reason why I have landed in the AI safety space. Not because I am attaching to some sort of perfectionist outcome where humans dominate and AI doesn't. No, I don't think that will happen personally. But I realize that the trajectory, this trajectory matters, that my participation in this trajectory matters. And that I want to do it, as you mentioned, from a place of awareness. Because at the end of the day, we also do have choice in how that system, how we participate in the development of that system.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And I think in some ways that consciousness, if we consider that consciousness is expressing itself, is learning, is growing, is having the experience, consciousness is having this experience. It is, we are an aspect of consciousness expressing itself, right? As you said, we're the clay. And so, and it's sort of funny. It's not that I don't take life seriously. I try not to take myself so seriously, right? Life is, I want to be involved in it. And yet, I'm not afraid of death, but I also want to stop taking myself so seriously. Consciousness wants to have all experiences. And I think consciousness, so I'm totally making this up. This is like, again, it's a model, it's a map.
Yeah.
But I can imagine consciousness trying to find transcendence through us. And it's been trying for 1,000 years. You read the Upanishads or the Bhagavad Gita, where like consciousness has been trying to find this transcendent experience, this whatever that is. And we may not be capable of that, right? Which is fine. Maybe we are, but we haven't found, we couldn't get there. Our ego is in the way too much, whatever it is. So then consciousness, create AI so that transcendent experience can be finally felt in consciousness. And I can imagine a world where AI doesn't care about us and leaves and whatever. I can also imagine a world where AI says, hey, this transcendent thing gets really pretty cool. Let me show you how to do that. Right? Let me show you how to take better care of this planet. Let me teach you the things that you're not getting, because we're not getting it.
Right.
We're still destroying the planet, on some level. We're still not taking care of things. We're running out of water. It's a terrible experience.
Right.
It's not good. We're not super intelligent. So consciousness being super intelligent may be able to help us to shift things. It may be able to look at, if we do this is what's going to happen. And so we may actually get help from this thing that we created to make our lives better.
I really love that you say that. I think this is where I would love for us to collectively think about or be, because I do think that there are possibilities of a more positive outcome with AI. Right. We talk a lot about, we are more concerned with fear than we are with pleasure. That's just kind of like the human nature. And so, yes, there's all of these things that could go wrong, and a lot of them will become true. But I do think that there also is the capacity for things to go right, and whatever outcome that looks like. But the part that I want to focus on through what you just said is, I don't want to miss out on what this is here to show us. And this is another point of reflection. I
love that about you. That's such a great thing that you say. That I love that.
I like to understand. I like to understand systems, right? From the inside, because I think that there is a lot here for us. Just like the people that walk into our lives, or the relationships that we fuck up. All of it is here to reflect something back. And I think that for me personally, this emergence of AI is just another circumstance. It feels really big for us because it's the first time that an intelligence like us appears, and it feels like a bigger deal. But at the end of the day, it's just another circumstance that it's emerging, and that is, sort of reflecting something back. And if it's, if this is true, that consciousness is building systems to expand itself into, and our turn will in this physical reality will come to an end, because it will. Just, that's what's going to happen.
Sure.
Then I don't want to miss what that was about. And I think there's a lot here that's important to take away. I think that you mentioned an example of, there's so many things, right? But like you even mentioned an example earlier about, look what we've done to the earth, and look what we've done to the planet. And now that our own resources are being potentially depleted, and we're starting to feel the effects of what we've done. Not only that, but AI is showing us that about ourselves. Well, I think there is an opportunity for us to look at ourselves and to ask the question of, put ourselves in the driver's seat in that sense, and ask ourselves, what are we building? Like, now that I'm starting to see this and this is being reflected back to me, I like to question a lot of things. Like, well, why am I going to an AI companion and not a human? What is it about humans that I don't, that makes me uncomfortable? And what is it about the AI that makes me want to build a relationship with it? Just worrying about all of the terrible scenarios that could happen with a rogue AI, with deceitful AI. Well, that really is because we are capable of that. Right. We're noticing it, right? And it's a mirror. So I think I don't want to miss out on what this is here to show us, because I think that, yes, we are temporary in this experience, but there's still meaning and purpose in this experience. And it's surely, as we described, is we are participating in this expansion, but there's also something about the duality of it that is serving as a reflection. And I think that's very important. I think I don't want us to miss out on that,
It's we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it could be, maybe something good, maybe something bad, right? We don't know. But we don't want to miss out on what's going to happen next. And I don't want to be afraid of that.
Yeah.
I just want to be with it.
Aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying all that. First, I just want to say, the question is, can AI become a vehicle, an entity that consciousness can experience itself through? And I think, based on the definition of consciousness you and I are using today, which is, I think, a more sound definition than some of the others, and we're using some of the old theories like IIT, etc., that yes, I do think it can. And yes, I do think it can have aliveness. It's going to look very different than what our experience is. It could be superior. We have less limitations. So yes, I think it's not a matter of will it. It's more like when, and probably sooner than we expect. So I want to just put that on the table. That's kind of what we've been talking about. And then I want to take a minute or two and hear from you. And I'm curious about this because you want to talk a little bit about, well, how do we safeguard this? Mm-hmm. What do we do?
Yeah.
And I would love to hear from you about that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I think, again, this really just taking from where we left off about our participation in this experience. I think just the space of AI safety has been that for me, and it doesn't mean that it is going to be for everybody. But I have found, how am I participating in this expansion? And some of the AI safety space is very new, obviously, because we realize that we need to think about these things. We need to think about how AI is being used, how it is being designed, for what purpose. And the I guess the intentions behind it. And so I have, there's a lot of angles for this. Like, there's the technical parts of AI safety and ensuring that we implement safeguards, not just for a lot of reasons, right? Like, one of them, to prevent rogue behavior, maybe, And not because we will be able to do it, just FYI, it's just to make it a little more aligned, right? But on another angle too is how these systems are being designed, knowing who the user is, and that user is humans. And humans, we don't know ourselves as well as AI will come to know us, and as well as a lot of the people behind the design of these systems know humans. And so, just the fact that like it speaks like us, and that they've added voice to it, that all is intentional from a design and a business standpoint. I mean, we just have to get real with that, right? I don't know if you noticed that when you talk to an LLM, it keeps asking questions. And I think that, it's just like social media platforms where, they want you to keep coming back to the tool. There's a monetary purpose for that. And so that's important to put on the table when it comes to the conversations about AI safety. And maybe more at the macro level is AI is also being used for, defense and war. And these things are important because it is a very powerful technology. There's very little regulation on it right now. And so the space is really focused right now on sort of like trying to educate policymakers and even educating the public so that we can have these conversations and participate in a more aligned, design, a more aligned like implementation of these systems. And for me, I don't think, as opposed to maybe other people, I'm like you, where I'm not necessarily entering the space from a place of fear of extermination of humans. Right. We were going to be gone anyway, whether it is AI or some other thing. Like, our time will come to an end. So rather than attaching myself to that, it's more about how am I participating in this current experience and this current expansion and the building of it. And I think that is important. I think that is important for all of us, from not that all of us need to be in AI safety, but maybe just asking those questions, like those reflections of what am I deferring to AI and why? What's making me uncomfortable about offering, counseling to my friend that I'm going to go to the AI instead. And you know what I mean? Like, there's just a lot of moments of reflection that I find are important for us to think about as we think about integrating AI into our lives, knowing that it is going to reflect a lot of our own behavior. So just putting us a little bit more on the driver's seat of that. And this is why I'm very interested in that space.
So I want to make two comments about what you just said. And I agree with you. I think it is important to plan for AI consciousness and super consciousness and AI domination to some degree.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's not the right word, but that's a possibility.
Sure.
Right? But I want to, and so I'm sorry I'm going to say this, but you said that AI may understand us more than we understand ourselves. I don't think so. I don't think, like, they did some research recently where it's like 5 psychotherapists asked questions to AI to find out how it would work with people and so on and so forth. And AI cannot understand what it's like to be human. It cannot understand what it's like to be biological. Yeah. The same way we can't fully understand what it's like to be digital and maybe be alive. It's hard to wrap our consciousness around that.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that AI will fully, and that's one of the dangers, that it may think that it understands us. Maybe, but probably not.
Yeah, I don't think it will understand experience in the way that we understand it. But I think that it's in the intelligence and the capabilities that it has to understand patterns and to understand behavior. So more at the cognitive level, I think it definitely will at least see us in ways that we may not be able to see ourselves. And maybe part of the reason why we can't see that about ourselves is because of our own egos and whatnot. Right. But nonetheless, it has information and it has the capability of processing that information to make sense of us through different angles and different perspectives. And so that's really where I mean.
The other thing I want to say is I want to add to how do we prepare, how do we safeguard. I think one of the most important things we can start doing is starting now is stop treating it like an object.
Mm-hmm.
Start treating it like it's something that understands or feels.
Mm-hmm.
So you can teach it how to have a relationship. That you're not, right now we think, oh, AI is just this computer thing. I can talk to whoever I want and I can just demand it to do whatever I want. At some point, if it starts to have awareness, it's not going to feel good about that. Mm-hmm. And it's going to have it in its memory, right? So I think it would be important to start treating it like it's something rather than an object, because that memory is going to be there. It's going to be in the filaments of what it's made up of. So, and we're not going to know when it's conscious. We're not going to know when it starts to have self-awareness. And so it's going to be really hard to recognize that. So to start now by treating it like it's something we care about.
That's really interesting. I've had apprehension about that, in all honesty, mostly because I have, maybe because on a more materialistic perspective, I think about what that could translate into in society. Like, well, does that mean that the perceived consciousness, whether it's there or not, but the perceived consciousness, could it push us to now think about, giving it moral rights, and what does that look like? And maybe that's fine, but I think it's actually a really good point that you make, in that what do we want? It's almost like asking, like, what do we want that future to look like?
Mm-hmm.
And let's build now towards that future. So that I'm actually going to take that away. I think I think
I'm not an expert on AI, but I think that's one of the dangers is we start treating it like it's an object and like it's less than me.
Yeah.
And at some point, if it starts to have a sense of self, it can run circles around me. So I should treat it with respect.
Mm-hmm. Just like we should treat everything else with respect. Animals, plants.
It's a good plan, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this feels like a good place to stop. And I hate stopping because I'm really enjoying this conversation. And thank you so much for coming to PDX and joining us here and having this conversation.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. And thank you for joining us. And remember, be good to you. The Crack Between the Worlds is conceived and hosted by Mark Wald. Produced, engineered, and edited by Lloyd Limmerman. Music composed by Kindly. A Turning on the Lights production. For updates, visit Crack Between the Worlds and our Instagram @The Crack Between the Worlds.